Okay, assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I apologise first of all for cancelling the lecture last week. Obviously, I think a lot of people know that there was a death in the family, so unfortunately I couldn't do the lecture. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for everybody's support. It was absolutely phenomenal, with so many lovely messages coming up, you know, that people phoned me about and everything. And some of the words actually that people used to support me, they were actually words that I use in my own lectures, and that really struck me, and you know, it was really, really lovely. We had people coming to the funeral as well, and it was all, you know, alhamdulillah, helped really with the bereavement process. Some people said that I don't really tell everyone about my qualifications enough. So basically, I've got so many hats, I don't know really where to start. But what I've decided to do is that whenever I do a lecture, if I just tell you how I'm qualified for that lecture, that will at least be relevant. Because if I told you all my qualifications, a lot of them will not be relevant to the lecture. So basically, I'm a Muslim chaplain. I'm a Muslim chaplain in 4 places. I'm a Muslim chaplain at a university where I support lots and lots of students within mental health, because we are going to be talking about mental health today. I'm also a voluntary Muslim chaplain at Blue Water Shopping Centre, St Luke's Hospice, where I come across a lot of death, cancer, that kind of stuff, which could be caused because of black magic, and also Chelmsford College. And I've also got a master's in special educational needs, social and emotional, mental health and wellbeing needs. And basically I started off with a science degree, which was, nowadays it's called biomedical studies, which included genetics and things. And when I became a teacher, then I sort of fused the two. So I then became a teacher, but with a science specialism. And I'm saying that in particular because this talk will have a lot of science in there as well. Apart from that, I'm also Secretary of Essex Mind and Spirit, which is an organisation that deals with faith and mental health. How does faith help with the mental health, which is spot on really for this talk. Some of you are new here, so if we could please put our mobile phones away and on silent. And you are allowed to make notes if you like. I have got notes if you want to take them with you. If you want to make notes, you're more than welcome to. In fact, that shows enthusiasm for learning and shows that you're taking the topic seriously. So if anyone needs any plain paper, did you want paper? No. I have got paper if you want. Okay, you can take the notes afterwards. So this talk is on black magic, Siu, it's called in Arabic, Jinns and evil eye. I did this in particular this week because it's been Halloween and we need to look at our own perspectives on jinns and things. Some people turn around and say they don't believe in jinns. I've had one lady this week telling me she doesn't believe in jinns. Believing in jinns is actually part of our faith, and that worries me when people say that, because does that then mean that you don't believe in shaitan, who we know is a jinn? Does that mean that Surah Jinn, which is in the Quran, does that mean you don't believe in the whole of that chapter? Also, we know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was afflicted by magic as well, and 2 surahs of the Quran came down. Does that mean we don't disregard those 2 surahs then as well? So believing in black magic is important because then we can avoid it. And if something happens, we know how to fix the problem as well. So it is important. Something really interesting in my role, the roles that I've explained to you, is what I find is that the science is very separate from the actual medical side. And there's a big problem there. So psychiatrists are only looking at medicine, and the people who are not religious only deal with the medicine side of things to cure themselves. And the people who are religious, they don't look at the medicine and they're only dealing with the Islamic side of things. And it's so important really to try and fuse the two, which I've tried to attempt to do today, because people need to understand that it's not just medicine, but also Islamic has to come into it as well to deal with the problem. Okay, so this lecture is in 3 parts. The first part is to do with jinns. We have to understand jinns in order to understand the black magic. And then after that, we will look at how black magic works. We need to understand the mechanism. We need to understand the mechanism because then we need to know how does that fix the problem then. After the mechanism is looked at, how does all the remedies actually fix it? If you understand it, it really makes your religion stronger, much, much more stronger. And then at the end, we will look at bits from the Quran and the Sunnah, what the Prophet Muhammad used to get rid of black magic and evil eye and all of that kind of stuff. So let's start off with jinns. Okay, does anybody know what the word jinn means? Any ideas? Yes? Aisha?
Hidden.
Hidden, good. It does mean hidden. Do you remember the word Jannah? When I did my Jannah lecture on Jannah, I said that the word Jannah means hidden garden. And did you know that the word jinn comes from the word Jannah, which means hidden and concealed? And this is the reason really why jinns, a lot of people don't believe in them because they are actually invisible. And that's one of the reasons. But also, if you look at Hazrat Suleiman's story, I did mention that, there's another one there. It does involve jinns, and if you don't believe in jinns, it means you don't believe in the whole of Hazrat Suleiman's story either. Believing in jinns is actually part of our faith, and there are lots of unseen things that we believe in. If you look at our Iman al-Mufassal, there are 7 things essential for Muslims to believe in, and one of them is actually the belief in angels, and jinns is actually alongside angels. And also, the belief that all good and bad is from Allah is very, very important in this lecture. And I'm putting that one up as well for a reason, because when we talk about black magic and things, this is one of the things that we have to believe in as a Muslim. And then the first religion, did you know, to look into jinns in detail was actually Islam, even though if we look at the Jewish times, Moses, there was a lot of magic. Magic was actually rife in the times of Moses, but jinns are not mentioned in the scriptures. And then if we go down to Christian times, again, some of the black things were mentioned, like exorcisms, for example. Reverends do exorcisms. I don't know if anybody's read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe as children. If you read that book now, because I read it recently while I was still teaching, it says the word jinns in there, which means that they do exist in the Christian culture. But for the first time, when Islam came, which remember is an update of all the previous religions and is actually the final religion, the complete religion, jinns were mentioned in great detail, fully, so we could fully understand them. Like I said, there is a surah called Jinn in the Quran. Who can tell me what jinns are made out of? Shall we have Aisha?
Fire.
You know, fire. What kind of fire? It's quite specific. Smokeless fire, good. So it says in the Quran, indeed we created man from dried clay of black smooth mud, and we created the jinn before that from smokeless flame of fire. That is in Surah Hijr, chapter 15, 26 to 27, the rocky tract. So it tells you that jinns were actually created before humans. They were created first. And if we look at the history of the world, the science actually does tell us that the earth was nothing but a big volcanic mass of fire when it was first created, and water, the core element for biological life, did not appear on the planet until after it was cooled, after millions of years. Therefore, if the creation and evolution of man began with the presence of water on earth, then it is reasonable to state that the creation of the jinn began when the earth was still a hot, fiery mass million years ago. Okay? Now, the other very important thing I did say at the beginning, I am going to try and attempt to fuse the medical side with the scientific side, and this is where we are now going to look into the science of things. So all of the clues given in the Quran lead to one logical as well as scientific conclusion, that jinn can be plasma energy beings. I don't know if anybody's of a scientific nature here, but plasma is energy matter that makes up a lot of the universe. And the description the Quran gives of jinn being made from a smokeless fire fits perfectly with this energy matter which is present, but it's not always possible to view with the naked eye. So plasma is defined as an assemblage of negatively charged particles. That is very important. Negatively charged particles called electrons that react collectively to forces exerted by magnetic fields. That's how we can explain it scientifically. The electrons create a negative charge and the jinns form the negative part of the atmospheric plasma. Okay? Now, plasma we can't see, so we can't prove all this, but modern day scientists are looking into all of this because when the evil eye effects happen, they find a lot of negative charges within bodies and things, and it is linked with epilepsy. But all of that will come into place as I go along in the lecture. Okay, why were jinns created by Allah? To worship Allah, good. Just like we were created to worship Allah. So it tells you, and I, Allah, created not the jinns and humans, except that they should worship me alone. And that is in Surah Dariyah, the winnowing winds, and that is chapter 51, verse 56. They do have free will, which means that they can choose between good and bad, just like human beings. They're not like angels. Angels have to do whatever Allah tells them to do. They have no free will. But jinns have free will and they can choose between good and bad. And they are living on earth in a world parallel to human beings. That bit I will talk about as well in a minute. Who knows the most famous jinn? Who's the big captain of the jinns?
Shaitan yes? himself.
Shaitan. Iblis is the proper name, okay? That's a better answer because there are so many shaitans, you'll find out in a minute. Big ones, little ones, different kinds, different species. But Iblis is the name, the actual name I'm after of the big major shaitan who is the captain. And some of you may know this story, but I am going to cover creation later on in December. The jinn, as you know, existed before the creation of Adam, and they were the rulers of the earth, okay? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Adam alayhi salam, who was just made out of clay, black mud clay, whereas the jinns were made out of fire, something far more superior. And then on top of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told all the angels and Iblis. Now Iblis was such a good person, he believed in Allah and he really worshipped Allah a lot. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did was, he took Iblis from the lower heavens and the earth and brought him up to himself and said, you can live here with me and you can live here. You're the same status as the angels who don't have free will. The angels don't have free will. They do whatever Allah tells them to do. But this Iblis was doing the same. So Iblis was brought up with the angels. That shows you what a good person he was. Well, not a person, but a good jinn he was. And then Adam alayhi salam, I know I'm cracking my jokes again, but I can't help it, it's my personality. So Adam alayhi salam, who was just a bit of black mud, was made. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told all the angels and Iblis to do, because he was like the angels with them, he told them to bow down to Adam alayhi salam. And Iblis became big-headed, jealous, envious. He said, I'm not doing that. He's made out of black mud and I'm made out of fire. Why would I do that? I'm far more better than him. And us jinns, we rule the whole earth and you've just made this black thing now, who's just a nothing, and you're telling me to bow down to him. So he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it tells you in the Quran, behold, we said to the angels, bow down to Adam. They bowed down except Iblis. He was one of the jinns, and he broke the command of his Lord. Will you then take him and his progeny as protectors rather than me? And they are enemies to you. Evil would be the exchange for the wrongdoers. That's in Surah Qaf, right in the center of Surah Qaf. I have done a lecture, full lecture on Surah Qaf, and it's really interesting where all the stories are there for the morals, the 4 stories, and then smack in the middle there is this ayah about disobeying Allah. So if you haven't seen that, it is on my YouTube channel. So that is in chapter 18, verse 50. So Shaitan was arrogant, he considered himself better than Adam and all of mankind, and he rebelled and said that I'm now going to corrupt up everybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala threw him down to the lower heavens, and then eventually after he corrupts up Adam, which we will do another day, he then comes down to earth. And this is what is written again in the Quran in Surah Al-Araf, the Heights, chapter 7, verses 16 to 17. Surely I will sit in wait against them, human beings on your straight path. Then I will come to them from before them and behind them and from their right and from their left. And this is his promise that he made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this is what he's going to do. He's crafty and cunning, and he, did you know, understands the weakness of human beings. They're very, very clever, shaitans. They understand your weakness, what you love, what your desires are, what you hate, and when they live with you, they play up on all of those things. They know everything, basically. Okay, so where does Iblis live? Put your hand up if you know, because I know some of you are going to, loads of you are going to shout out, yes?
Right at the bottom of the ocean.
Good, well done. Okay, right at the bottom of the sea. That is where he lives, and he has lots and lots of armies. Jinns have free will, so they can be good or they can be bad. The bad jinns follow their leader, who is Iblis. The largest jinns go at the front. This is him on his throne under the sea, and the smaller jinns that are weaker are at the back. It's a little bit like that here, isn't it? The ones who are stronger in their faith are at the front, and the weak ones are a little bit less confident. Apart from the sister who's in the wheelchair, because I know Mashallah, she's very knowledgeable, but that's different because you couldn't come forward. So, so it's a little bit like that, isn't it? So, it says that Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal relates that Jibreel said that the Prophet said Iblis places his throne on the sea, then he sends forth his armies, okay? He tells them all to do bad. Every time they come, they say, we've done this and we've done this for you, and he says, that's rubbish, that's nothing. I'm not happy, that's not good enough. Until what happens, and then all of a sudden he gets happy. What is his ultimate goal, Aisha?
To get people to disbelieve in Allah or break up marriages.
Okay, that is one of them, but did you know there's one even bigger? So shirk is one of them. Let's have Ghania.
When they disobey Allah?
No, she's said that one already.
Is it marital discord?
Marital discord. He only gets happy when a couple gets divorced. So there's a good one for you, for couples there, isn't it? If you argue or if there's something you don't like, yes, it can be from Shaitan, okay? So he says that every time one of them comes and says, I did such and such, he says, you didn't do anything. Then another one comes and says, I didn't leave him till I split him from his wife. He brings him near and says, you did well, okay? And basically, this is Iblis's influence on all the bad shaitans. There is only one time in the year when he has less influence. Not total God influence, but less influence. When is that time? Pardon?
Arafah.
No, no.
Ramadan.
Ramadan. Remember, he's chained up? Okay. So, the month of Ramadan starts, the gates of heaven are opened and the gates of hell are closed, and the devils are chained. That is Sahih Bukhari. So he is chained. The large jinns and shaitans are chained, but the little ones are still running around, which means there is still, sin does still happen in Ramadan. We know actually 2 years back, I think the Manchester atrocity happened in Ramadan, didn't it? And so many people asked me, I thought you said in your lecture that the shaitans locked up. But not all of them. They still have influence on the little ones. And later on I will be talking about another jinn as well, which is always there. That's not locked up. Okay? Okay. I said to you that jinns have free will, so they are good and bad jinns. Mostly they are bad. Why? Why are most jinns bad? It's to do with what I talked right at the beginning.
You promised us he will take Adam's sons
Yes.
with him.
Yes.
Fire.
Yes. It's something to do with their nature, the way they are made.
Fire.
They're made out of fire. Okay? Everything hot is bad. Angry, hot, red. Okay? So, because of the nature, the way they are made, there are more jinns that are bad than they are good. But we know that there are good jinns, because when I did my Hajj lecture, I talked about jinns going and doing Hajj, didn't I? And also in the Quran, it tells you that there was a group of jinn and they listened to the Quran and they actually believed in Allah and said they will never make partners to their Lord. That is actually in Surah Jinn. That's chapter 72, verses 1 to 2. And some jinns, there are among some that are righteous and some that are contrary. We are groups, each having a different way. So there are actually religious sects also, and that is actually mentioned again in Surah Jinn, chapter 72. So each, humans have different sects and different levels of piety, like that within jinns there are different sects as well. And this is the hierarchy so far, so that you can understand. So jinn is a whole category of all these beings made out of smokeless fire. Then Iblis is the chief, biggest one, the most baddest one. And then he tries to influence all the jinns, but mostly the bad ones. They are called shaitans, demons, infidels, devils, whatever you want to call them. But a small proportion don't listen to him. They are believers, they are Muslim, and they are jinns. Okay? And this is why that box is bigger, because there's more of those than there is the little ones. Jinns are very similar to us. They marry, they have children, okay? They live in families. This is a family of jinn. This is actually our cartoon out at the moment. Did you know that? It's called Jinn Lampart cartoon. You can look it up. And all the jinns are different colours. Normally jinns are red, but in a minute when I talk about the different types of jinns, you can get blue jinns, you can definitely get green jinns. You know the ones that are aliens on Mars? Those are jinns. You know when you see things and you think, gosh, that's an alien. It's not really an alien. We don't believe in ghosts or aliens and things. It's actually a jinn which is green and looks different. They just show to appear themselves. Jinns are invisible, like I said, but they can choose to appear when they want to, or if Allah wills them to. Okay? So they're all different colours. Their lifespan is much, much more greater than ours. So they live for hundreds of years. That I will talk to you about again in a minute when I come to haunted houses and things. And like I said, they marry, they have children, and they do die eventually. Okay, what do they eat?
Bones.
Bones, good. That's a very good one.
And cow dung, things like
Leftover food,
Leftover.
cow dung's a good one, poo basically. They do eat poo, okay? And bones and rubbish and leftover food, okay? Those are the four very important ones. So here he is. He's not tucking into pratas, but he is tucking into bad things. And he is red, like I said, shaitan is red. This actually is something else to do with science. Red is actually negative energy. And when I talk about healing and all of that, some of it which is shirk, I will talk about healing is all blue and things. So shaitan is red, made out of negative, from the negative energy spectrum is the red colour. And this is why when we eat, we say our dua. So whenever we eat, we always try and do our bismillah, because We say Allah's name before eating or drinking because it keeps the shaitan from partaking with the person in his food and drink. We say it at the beginning and we say it at the end. This is the reason. Because shaitan sits there to eat our leftover food. Did you know that in houses where dirty dishes are just left on the side, there is more probability of shaitans coming into the house? So when we eat, we must wash our dishes and put them away. Don't leave them there for days. If you've got a dishwasher, that's fine, girls. I can see some of you thinking, oh no, we have to wash the dishes. Just open the dishwasher and put them in and then close the door. They don't go through closed doors, by the way. That's another bit I will come to in a minute. So make sure you put your dirty dishes away. Also, because they live for hundreds and hundreds of years, you will often find them in deserted places. Okay? So there's a haunted house. And you know, whenever you see haunted films, horror films, you always hear about ghosts and things, don't you? We don't believe in ghosts. We believe that once they die, they're dead. Okay? But jinns, it's jinns that you see there. If you do hear a voice or see something flying around, then it's actually a jinn. And graveyards is the other one. Again, it's not ghosts, you see, it's actually jinns. And we believe that the graveyards, you should not really go through them when it's dark. This is why we bury, ideally before Asr Salah, don't we? Okay, there should not be any burials at Maghrib time or before Maghrib time. So graveyards is very important. I don't know if anybody knows the story of the Yorkshire Ripper. If you look him up, he was actually a grave digger. Did you know? And it's obvious that a jinn then went inside him and told him to do things. If you look at his biography, he's actually said in his biography that he used to have voices in his ears. He used to tell him, do this and do this and do this. So he did. So it's quite obvious he was possessed by a jinn, which he got from the graveyard where he was digging the graves from. Okay, where else? This is also in the Quran. Does anybody know where else you find jinns? Is it Zainab?
Yeah.
Toilets.
Bathrooms?
Yeah, bathrooms is one, good. There's another one before that.
Trees and the trees.
Good, good. I'm very, very pleased with you. You did really well. Forests where there's trees, okay? You know, if you look at in the Quran, there's actually the people of the thicket. There is the story of the people of the thicket, and they were worshipping trees and all sorts was going on. So the woods. This is why you always, in fairy tale stories, where are all the witches? They're always in the woods, aren't they? Hansel and Gretel, yes? The witches are always in the woods. So you never get them in the cities. Have you ever heard of a story where the witches are in the city area? They're always in the woods. So that is one. Right, if you wee on top of a tree, a jinn can possess you. Did you know when we look at the jinns, what upsets them? One of them is if you wee against a tree, and that is a jinn, and then it possesses you. Okay? So this is actually true. This is actually all stuff I'm speaking from the hadiths. And then toilets I'll come to in a minute, but there's one more where you find jinns more often. What are we asked to do with our children before Maghrib time?
Bring them out. Bring them in.
Bring them in. Why? Because when it gets dark, the jinns come out. If you look at darkness, all the bad things happen at dark. The nightclubs, the dancing, any affairs, all the bad happens at night. The burglaries, do they not happen at night, mostly? Yes? So this is because shaitan has a bigger influence at night, and the shaitans are all out. So, Jabir radiallahu anhu said, the Prophet ﷺ said, cover up the vessels, i.e. kitchen containers such as pots, pans, tie up the mouth of the water skins, lock up the doors and extinguish the lamps, because shaitan cannot untie the water skin or open the door or uncover the containers. If one can cover the vessel even by placing a piece of wood across it and mention Allah's name on it, let him do it. That is in Sahih Muslim. So, you know jugs of water that are out, we should really cover them. or empty the water and then drink new water. Don't leave jugs of water out. This is all very authentic stuff. I only use the strongest of hadiths, because there's a lot of new people here today. I only try and use the strongest of hadiths, so whatever I'm telling you is very authentic. The other place they're found in is toilets, because they eat poo, okay? The biggest jinns are in your toilet. And you know what the worrying thing now is? When I was looking at the trends of mental health, there's more jinn possession nowadays than there was years ago. One of the things mentioned was that in Victorian times, the toilets used to be outside in your garden. And now all of a sudden this ensuite business is all within England, isn't it? Really, from the Western culture. The olden days, even in England, the toilets were always outside. Even in our own home countries, the toilets were always outside of the house. Okay? Now the toilets are in the house, you're going to find more jinns in your house. This is why we've got a special dua which helps you to get rid of the jinns going in and going out. So, on the name of Allah, Allah, I take refuge with you from all evil and evildoers. The Prophet said to put a barrier that will prevent jinns from seeing the aura of the sons of Adam. Let any one of you say Bismillah when entering the toilet. That is in Tirmidhi 551. And then coming out again, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah and Tirmidhi and Nasai, all three record that when you come out, then there is another dua. Okay, Ghufranaka. And that one is very, very important. And basically, did you know that different jinns have different names? And those who reside in the toilets are known as Qubaith. And this is why it is actually there within the dua, the name of that jinn is there. Can you see at the end of there? Qubaith, at the end of that. It's actually by name, it's written there, that dua, so it gets rid of that particular species. Okay? Put it up if you want, but not on the inside of the toilet only. I get this question a lot. Put it on the outside of your toilet if you don't want to forget as you go in, but don't put it on the inside of the toilet. Okay. One of the powers of jinn is that they are able to take on any physical form they like. Okay? And there are three major forms jinns come in. Put your hand up if you know one of them. Shall we have you?
Dogs.
Dogs, good.
Human.
Okay, we're doing one at a time. Okay, I'm going to do one, talk about it, then we do the next. So, basically, black dogs especially can be forms of shaitan. Okay, and we know this because when we see a dog, we're supposed to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, aren't we? Why is that then? Why are you saying that? Look at the words, I seek refuge from the shaitan. This is why we are asked to say it. There are many, many hadiths that tell us that, like Abu Thalaba al-Khushani said, the Messenger of Allah said the jinn are of three types, okay? And one of them is dogs. And we also know that we're not allowed to keep dogs in the house because also their saliva is najais, which means you cannot, it's unclean and you cannot do your salah. You have to do full ghusl before you do your salah. But you are allowed to have blind dogs or guard dogs, but outside the house, kept outside the house, not inside the house. Okay, what is the other two animals, if you like?
Snake.
Snake, good. Okay, snake is a very good one. Snake is actually mentioned quite clearly. In fact, you know, in some of the narrations, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala got rid of Iblis and said, go down there at the bottom, right at the beginning, when I started, some say he had to crawl on his belly as a snake. So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, the apostle of the apostle said, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, some snakes are jinn, so when anyone sees one of them in his house, he should give it a warning 3 times. If it returns after that, he should kill it, for it is a devil. That's Abu Dawood. Okay, so 3 times you can tell it, go away, get out of here, get out of here. And if it doesn't, it means it's a jinn, and then you can chop it. Okay? Other reptiles as well. Chameleon is another one. Did you know? You know Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was thrown in the fire, all the animals got together to put out the fire with water, except the chameleon. And that's actually a very strong hadith that tells you that. So, on the whole, reptiles are not good. Okay, that's the animals done. What else? Yes?
Humans themselves.
Humans themselves, yes. You know, like Dajjal, when he comes, he is going to chop up people, bring them together, and then say, look, that's your dad who died, and now it's him, but he takes on that form. Yes?
There's a specific hadith about the man who came in the form of the jinn that came in the form of man, and Prophet ﷺ told that companion to read Ayatul Kursi.
Yes.
He was stealing food over 3 nights.
Yes, good. We're going to cover all the remedies after we've covered jinns and the black magic, but that is a very good example, yes. So we have got examples where jinns do become human beings as well and try and trick you. I'll tell you another story. My dad's not here, but I wish he was. But anyway, he told us something once. He said he was a small child, and in his city, Lahore in Pakistan, he went to the bazaar, and there was this man, and he took the hot oil pot and he drank it in front of everybody. And then he just disappeared. And my dad was telling my mum this. He used to tell us this quite a lot. And it's only now it's occurred to me that that must have been a jinn. That couldn't have been a human being. And I doubt if it was an angel, but it must have been a jinn. So they do appear when they want to be appeared. Right, that's a good example. What else? There's 3 types of jinns. So one that takes the form of animals or humans. What other? There's 2 other types of jinns. There's a big audience. Come on. It's got to be somebody who knows the answer.
I can't look at this snake anymore.
Pardon? Oh, you can't look at the... Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll give you a clue. Think of a pantomime that has an Arabic character in it.
Oh, genie.
The genie in the lamp. Good, good. Okay, so the snake's gone. You can look now. The next one is a type that stops for a rest and then resumes its journey. So that genie they talk about, and have you noticed it's blue? Remember I said some of them are blue, is in that lamp. And then Aladdin, when you think about it, was a bad person because he was actually, do you know what he was doing? He was worshipping that jinn so the jinn could do things for him, which we will talk about in a minute. So it goes in there and comes out when it wants to, even after 100 years. It lives inside something, like a pot or a teapot or something, or your electric kettle or something like that. Okay, so that's the other one. Okay, what else? So they can take on any physical form they like humans or animals, and trees you mentioned earlier. What else? Well, there's a 3rd type of jinn. Think about this carefully. Pardon?
Fire.
No, we did all that at the
Would
beginning.
it be like the time, I think it was the Prophet Suleiman, where the jinns could move really quickly from place to place?
That's the one. It's a flying jinn. Okay? So, a type that has wings and they fly through the air. There's my flying carpet. You must have heard of flying carpets. There's an invisible jinn on there, the carpet's flying. And that is mentioned in the Quran in quite a few places. In fact, the whole story of Soleiman alayhi salam is there. Okay? So we gathered for Soleiman his army from jinn, mankind and birds. And Prophet Soleiman alayhi salam, he was given a gift. Just like all prophets are given a gift of some kind to show to people that that I am a prophet. Okay, so things like, for example, Musa alayhi salam was given the gift of magic. I'm going to do that one because we're talking about magic. At the time of Musa alayhi salam, magic was rife everywhere in that area of the world, and Prophet Musa alayhi salam was given the gift of magic to show everybody that, look, I am a prophet, believe me, listen to me. Okay? And at the time of Soleiman alayhi salam, his gift was that he could manipulate all the jinns. And it was the jinn, actually, that is the one that took Bilqis's throne from the land of Saba and bought it where he was, and then she ended up becoming Muslim within a flash of an eye. He said that even before I get up, that throne will be here, and within a blink it was here. So they travel huge speeds and are up in the air, flying carpets, and then visible. So this is how now, the next part, this is the second part of the lecture now, is how magic is done. So magic is done through the jinn, and if you look at this, this is actually a magician, and he's showing to the people that he's raising up a woman, but he's not really doing it. He's worshipping a jinn who is actually lifting her up. You can't see the jinn because the jinn is invisible, okay? So most magicians, did you know, are Jews. We know this from the time of Musa alayhis salam, because magic was rife amongst that time. And black magic was going on a lot in those days. Did you know black magic was going on even at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There was so much going on, which we will talk about later. Did you know that most of the magicians are Jewish even today? Who can name me 3 Jewish magicians?
David Blaine.
I don't know about that one. I haven't got that one on my list. Paul Daniels, he was Jewish. Paul McKenna and David Copperfield. All 3 of them are
Uri
Jewish.
Geller was also Jewish as well.
Was it? I don't know about
and
that
David
one.
Blaine as well.
Okay, so things like making the Statue of Liberty just disappear, the flying across the Grand Canyon and retrieving a ship from the Bermuda Triangle, they've all been done by the Jewish magician David Copperfield. There's no way a man could have done that, basically. And through their powers of flying invisibility, jinns are the chief component in occult activities: voodoo, black magic, poltergeist, witchcraft, mediums and illusions of magicians that can all be explained through the world of jinn. As jinn can travel huge distances over seconds, their value to magicians is huge. In return for helping them in magic, jinns actually ask magicians to worship them. So this is a really big sin. It's huge shirk, basically, isn't it? Some people say, oh, it's okay to do magic because Prophet Solomon alayhis salam, he played around and jinns were around in his time. But it does tell you in the Quran very clearly that he said in Surah chapter 38 verse 35, "Oh my Lord, forgive me and bestow on me a kingdom not allowed to anyone after me." So it was said that after him nobody can do that. It was only that specific gift that was given to him only. Now another thing very interesting that I have noticed as a teacher, and it's actually well known, is when it's a really windy day, do the children not come in hyperactive and all naughty? Have you noticed that? Notice it next time. I was always on playground duty as a member of the senior management team, and as I was special needs coordinator as well, all the naughty children would come to me after playtime, and I did a little tally, and every time it was windy, I'd have a huge number of children I had to deal with at playtime because they've been naughty. So jinns are in the wind, and the windier it is, the more it can affect you as well, especially children.
Does that
Yes.
happen on a full moon as well?
Yes, it does. Yes, the full moon as well. I've done that before, haven't I? The full moon has a big effect on water, and we are made out of a large amount of water, so it has an effect on us as well. And this is why we fast on the 3 white days, the 3 middle days in the middle of the month. Yes, this is why we fast in those 3 days. 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, isn't it?
13, 14, 15.
13th, 14th, 15th, right in the middle of the Islamic months. Okay? Right. There is something else. This is again magic. This is how it's done. So that was one of them, about all the lifting up of the ladies. And also, you know, sometimes they lift up a handkerchief and a bird comes out. That bird's a jinn that suddenly appears in the form of a bird. So it looks like it's magic, but it's really the jinn appearing all of a sudden as a bird. Now the other one is a very important one. The jinns in the days of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, magic was really out. The jinns would go right up near to the heavens, and they would listen to people's destiny and listen to the conversations between the angels and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they would come down and they would tell the magic ladies, the ladies who do magic, that this person, this is an example, Asma, I'll use you. Asma is going to have a baby girl in this month in February. Okay? Because that jinn has heard it from up there. Then you go to the magic lady and the magic lady tells you, oh, you're going to have a baby girl in February. Yes? And then a baby girl will be born in February. Then all of a sudden it's going to be, oh my God, how did she know that? Already that lady has taken you away from Allah, hasn't she? Because your belief in Allah has gone. And you know, right at the beginning when I did the Mane Mufassal, I said that one of our beliefs is that everything good and bad, destiny, is all from Allah. That's one of the crux of our religion, which means you're not a Muslim if you don't believe in that. So already the shaitan has then corrupted you up. Do you understand? This is how they do it. Okay? So this fortune-telling stuff happens because of this, but in the days when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, it said in the Quran, to stop all of this, meteors, so the shaitans that are going up there to listen are being struck by meteors so that they don't listen to the conversations. So now if that happens, they have added on 100 lies. I'm going to put that ayah of the Quran up. So we have guarded the heavens from every accursed devil except one who is able to snatch a hearing, and he's pursued by a brightly burning flame. So you know these meteorites and things that you hear, shooting stars. You know all these shooting stars, do you know what they really are? They're being thrown at the shaitans that go away, get down from here. You're not allowed to hear any conversations up there. And indeed, we've adorned the nearest heaven with lamps and made such lamps missiles to drive away the shayateen. And that is in chapter 67, verse 5, and it clearly tells you that. So the jinns would then inform the fortune tellers. This is why before the time of Prophet, many fortune tellers were very accurate with their predictions. However, as soon as the Prophet arrived, the heavens were guarded by angels, and any jinn who tried to listen was attacked by meteors or shooting stars. Does that make sense? Because that's quite an interesting concept to grasp. Does that make sense to you all? Yes? Okay. So this is then what happens. The jinn then would pass the information down until it reaches the lips of a magician or fortune teller, and sometimes a meteor would overtake them before they could pass it on. And if they passed it on or before being struck, they would add on it 100 lies. And this is nowadays. In the olden days it might have been accurate. Nowadays they can add on it 100 lies or so. So we're not allowed to believe in it. Some of it could be the truth, but we're not even allowed to delve into that at all. The reason is that the prayer of one who approaches a fortune teller and asks him about anything will not be accepted for 40 days or nights. That's in Sahih Muslim. And also, it also tells you that Prophet Muhammad said, whoever approaches an oracle or a fortune teller and believes in what he says has disbelieved in what was revealed to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That's in Abu Dawood, and also has disbelieved in the Quran. So basically you're not a Muslim anymore. Okay? You're not a Muslim anymore, basically. Horoscopes and Islam, we do not believe in any of that. We believe that only our future can only be set by Allah. He is the only one who knows what has happened, what will happen in the future, what is happening now. That is part of the Iman Mufassal, which I talked about earlier. So some of us believe that if we know what is in store for us tomorrow, we can prepare from today. In that way we may avoid the bad and ensure the good. Yeah, Allah's Messenger was told by Allah to say, if I knew the unseen, I would surely have only sought the good. But I am only a warner and a bearer of glad tidings for believers. That's in Surah Al-Araf. Forbidden also is to use arrows seeking luck or decision. This is all to do with gambling. All that is disobedience of Allah and sin. So our horoscope astrologer is more knowledgeable and more righteous than Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we're not allowed to delve into all the stars business. What can we do if we are not sure of what to do in the future? What can we do instead as Muslims?
Istikhara.
Istikhara, good. Istikhara is a very, very good way instead of fortune telling. If you really don't know what to do, then the way to do it is to seek Allah's guidance, and He is the only one then who can tell us, do we go this way or do we go that way? So in any decision. Okay, so we've looked at magic to do with jinns going into different forms. What kind of magic is done when jinns become people? Does anybody know this one? This is actually out there as well. Has anybody heard of seances and Ouija boards? What that is, you know when someone wants to talk to their dead relative and they get hold of somebody who brings their dead relative back in front of them, and then they can say, sorry, I did this to you, or I want to ask you this, because they consulted them in their lifetime. I know Cilla Black did this, by the way. She brought her husband back because she used to use him to consult things, and she wanted him and then she consulted him. Is that really Cilla Black's husband? No, it's really a jinn, okay? And seances, that is exactly what it is, and Ouija boards. It's all used to contact the dead. We know that in Islam you cannot bring the dead back. If you see them, then they are actually jinns, because once you die, you die. Until the day of resurrection, they will not come alive again.
And it can be unpredictable what goes on.
Pardon?
It's very unpredictable what goes on. Whoever's in charge of it can't really control.
Yes, I'm coming to that bit right now, because you know this happened to a boy in my school, so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. This is why people believe in ghosts, is for this reason. We don't. Shaitan is able to lead astray weak Muslims. Such visions are clear attempts by Shaitan to lead mankind away from Allah. And through these visions, the jinns are more likely to lead people away from the worship of Allah. And basically, did you know that Elijah was a Jewish man, and he is the one who introduced the Ouija board? So if you look at the history of the Ouija board, it's him who actually brought this in as well. A lot of Jews, like I said, are into magic and stuff. It's also said in our religion that if you delve into these things, the effect can go on you threefold. So if you're going to try and tamper around with jinns, make them come in front of you, they can then go inside you. And I'll tell you a story. I did explain my qualifications for a reason, because I'm going to bring them up. I was a special needs coordinator. I was dealing with children with mental health problems, schizophrenia, you name it, everything. And this is actually a village in Brentwood, so you think this wouldn't happen. But there was this boy, and he would be sent to me, he'd be crying. He said, I saw my granddad last night. And I said, okay, that's good, why are you crying then? He said, oh, but my granddad's been dead for a couple of years, and I saw him last night and I was talking to him. So I thought, what on earth is going on here? Then it got from worse to worse. He said that his cupboard door would open at night. Then he said he would see great big black things in his room. So I brought his mum in, and I had the counsellor with me as well, and the head teacher. So I sat them down and I said, look, what on earth is going on here? He said he sees his granddad every night. And the mum said, yes, that's correct. We do seances, and that's my dad, and I love him, and I actually bring him back every night so I can talk to him. And I was like gobsmacked. I could not believe she was coming out with that. And then later on, he could hear voices. And I am absolutely certain the jinn went in him, and he could hear voices, and all sorts were going on. And then obviously then we had to put him through mental health services. So you think these things don't happen, but this is a rich area in Brentwood, in a village where you think none of this happens. And the mum then turned around and told me she was a witch, a white witch, as well, on top of everything else. So she was into all of this. And I remember my face afterwards, and the head teacher said, Sidra, can you not look like that? She was telling me I'm not allowed to show my feelings in front of the parents, and I was like, oh my God, I was just too scared to see the
right
point.
in the middle of the woods in Brentwood.
Yeah, right in the middle of the woods. Yes, we were in the woods. So yes, all of this does happen, it does happen. Right, there's another thing while we're on the subject of witches. Everything around us gives positive and negative energy, even we do, okay? Every time the Buddhist person in our university sees me, he goes, I can't even come near you, you've got so much positive energy coming out of you. And whenever people are around you, you make them happy. And he's been telling me about all these positive and negative energies that are everywhere. Now, Sim, stop looking at me. And there's good and bad energies coming out of everywhere, out of trees, out of soil, out of the world. Okay, this is all to do with science. And I actually met a real pagan witch recently. We saw her in the interfaith forum, didn't we? And we actually met her and we talked to her. And she said she channels, what they do is, this is how they do their spells, they channel all the energies into something and then do good spells and bad spells. So basically she was talking about good spells. So what she does is she does good spells and channels that energy somewhere. And what they do is these jinns, they take a bit of your genetics, that can be your hair or your skin or any of your secretion from anywhere of your body, and then mix it into something. So for example, I'm going to give you an example. Say you like somebody and you want them to fall in love with you, okay? So what they do is they get a drink and they would put your genetics in there and a bit of your secretion, and they give it to the person who they want you to love, and then that person falls in love with you because they can smell you from in that drink, okay? Now is that a good? Do you think that should happen?
No.
No. So even though it's a good spell, you're not doing any harm to anybody, it's not allowed at all in Islam. But this is an example of some of the things that are done even for good, okay? Now the Chinese use energy to heal. I think that you asked me about that once, didn't you? About Chinese energy, channeling the energy. In Islam, we're not allowed to do that because in Islam, Allah has given us other things, like the Quran and other things to delve into, which then help us, okay? So we are not allowed to go back in time and follow other religions. Buddhism is actually a good example, like yoga, did you know, is a prayer practice of another polytheistic religion. It is. It's a polytheistic religion. Yoga goes back to Hinduism. And in Islam, Islam came to get rid of paganism. So the Islamic ruling on practicing yoga, it is not permissible for a Muslim to practice yoga at all, whether he does it on the basis of belief or imitating others, or because he is seeking a particular benefit. Yoga is contrary to Tawheed and involves associating other gods with Allah, as it involves prostrating to the sun and repeating mantras. Why would we do mantras when we've got the Quran? Allah has commanded only to worship Allah alone and not to join partners with Him. That's in Al-Ra'd, chapter 13, verse 36. If you join others in worship with Allah, then surely all your deeds will be vain and you'll certainly be among the losers. That's in Al-Zumar, chapter 39, verse 65. Because it involves imitation of idol worshippers and resembling them, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, whoever imitates a people is one of them. That's narrated by Ahmed and Abu Dawood and Al-Tabarani, and that's from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. So how many hadiths are that telling you clearly? Basically, we need to look at the messages, really.
What about like acupressure and acupuncture?
That's different, because that's different to channeling energies or meditating. Why would we meditate when we've got the latest religion and the latest form of prayer? And that's the bit I'm coming to now. So did you know that when we sent down the Quran, it says in the Quran, and we sent down the Quran, that which is a healing and a mercy to those who believe. And that's chapter 17, verse 82. So the Quran is the latest book the latest word of Allah, and there is so much shifa in the Quran. So much. It tells you in the Quran that it is a form of healing and a mercy. Did you also know that listening to the Holy Quran for 3 hours every day enhances your immune system, protects your heart and brain, and reprograms your cells? There have been experiments done that, for example, a little bit of your fluid has been taken out of your body and it's put under a microscope and it's all higgledy-piggledy, and when the Quran is said, it becomes completely circular, those cells in your body. So, you know, you're made out of water, everything in your body becomes calm and wonderful when the Quran is recited. Sound waves of recitation of Holy Quran activates body cells and cure illnesses, especially heart attack and cancer. Allah says, so when the Quran is recited, then listen to it and pay attention that you may receive mercy. That's chapter 7, verse 204. So the Quran, did you know, has positive sound waves in it. And there is something miraculous about the Quran, that is the best form of healing, okay? And the Quran in its intact way is the best. But what do you think jinns do when they do black magic? Because this is another way of doing black magic. What do they do to that Quran?
Quran backwards?
They write it backwards, okay? The Quran in its intact position is all completely full of energy, positive sound waves. When you hear it, the cells in your body become circular. I'm going to put a video on in a minute and you'll know what I mean. If you write it all backwards, what's going to happen? Negative energy, negative sound waves. Your cells are going to become all crooked. And then what's going to happen? You're going to get ill, aren't you? This is how it works. This is how it works. So the jinn, obviously these are all from people who worship the jinns, and then the jinns do it. They take bits of the Quran, they add up different letters to different letters and join up and makes different silly words. And when you jumble it all up, it has a very, very negative effect. Not only that, did you know that they write the Quran in the genetics of the person who they want the black magic to go on top of? So I'll give you an example. The ladies, for example, you know, their menstrual blood. This is actually one I've seen myself, because don't forget, I do work within the community. I get all sorts of problems coming to me. So this woman, poor thing, she brought this Taweez around my house and showed it to me, and yes, it was a Taweez because it was written all backwards, and it was written with menstrual blood, okay, which the jinn had taken from her, and in it, there was her husband's name and her name in it, in that Taweez, and they had broken up and they had divorced. So we did get that read, and then in the end I chucked it in water, because Taweezes are written by jinns which are made out of fire. You can't burn them. The only way is to cool them down, which is the opposite, and then put them in water. So this is how it works. They use a genetic of you and they will write the Taweez. Another one, this is another example that I can give you, which is again written with menstrual blood. Because it's written with menstrual blood, it mucks up your hormones. So you're going to argue with your husband and your wife, and your husband's going to try and touch you or want to sleep with you, and the wife's going to scream and run away and say, leave me alone. This is not ordinary headaches, boys. We're not talking about ordinary ordinary wives saying, sorry, I've got a headache, not today, you know, like they do. But this is ongoing forever and screaming as in, just don't touch me. That's when you know that something has happened, okay? Other things like that happens a lot back home. You know, your hair, bits of your hair. This is why back home a lot of people say, which you might know, you know, your hair, they put it in a tissue and then put it in the bin. You know, when you comb your hair, they never throw hair in the dustbin as it is, because all this is rife there because of, you know,
somebody will steal it.
Yes, okay. Yes, correct, and nails as well. Nails as well. So hair and nails are always wrapped up
Or buried.
Or buried, exactly. See, you know what I'm talking about because you're from Pakistan or Afghanistan. So I've just recognised who you are now, sorry. This is actually a real thing because people take those genetics, they put all this wrong way around Quran on it, and then it has a bad, evil effect. It can even make you die as well, that kind of stuff. Okay, but this kind of stuff only happens if it's Allah's will, and that's something you have to remember. Okay? Nothing can change your destiny except dua to Allah, but they could not thus harm anyone except by Allah's leave, and that is actually in the Quran chapter 2 verse 102. So it will only happen if Allah wills it to happen. Okay? So that's all the black magic sort of covered, but there's one more. Okay? Now what happens to you when you're born?
You get pricked by shaitan.
You get pricked by shaitan, yes. So let's do that one first. Now that's there for a reason. Why is the baby crying? Because the shaitan comes and pinches it. Okay? The only baby that didn't cry was who? Isa al-Islam is the only one where instead the shaitan came to pinch him, but he pinched the placenta instead. Okay? So here we are. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, when any human being is born, shaitan touches him at both sides of the body with his 2 fingers, except Jesus, the son of Mary, whom shaitan tried to touch, but failed, for he touched the placenta cover instead. And that's in book 54, hadith number 506. And then what happens? You do get influenced by shaitan because you're in the dunya now. Okay? You say adhan on them, good. Why? So the shaitan runs away. Okay? There are 3 reasons, did you know, why you say Allah's name? One is jinns, they don't like to hear Allah's name. They think, oh, I don't want to hear his name, I hate him, and they run away. Okay? The other one is the sound waves are so strong and positive, they neutralize. The jinn, which I talked about earlier, is negative, and they can't bear the positive sound waves, and it protects them that way as well. Okay? Right. What else then happens? This bit is very important.
You do a kika in 7 days to protect
Okay.
the baby from all the evil things.
Yeah, that is a good one actually, clever one, because you're giving away charity. Yes? But this is something that happens at the time of birth. Shaitan pinches and runs away, and then what happens? Is it Zainab?
Yeah, do you wash the baby?
No, no.
It's the dynamic thing, isn't it, that you give it to do?
No, this is to do with jinns only. We're only talking about black magic here. Okay, you're going to get shocked. A jinn goes inside you, the double of you. Okay, a double of you goes inside you, and that is the dark side of you, the green. He will stay with you all his life, and he'll try to corrupt you. Okay?
It goes inside the baby?
Yes. So yes, it's in you now as well.
Yeah.
Everybody has a green. Okay? Green. You must have heard him. Every human, we will discuss this more and then it will come to light a bit more. Every human has an individual jinn accompanying him, referred to as a green. Have you ever heard of the green-eyed, there's a green-eyed monster in all of us?
Yes.
Yeah? You must have heard of that. It's the same concept within Christianity as well. This is part of a man's test in his life. The jinn encourages his lower desires and constantly tries to divert him from righteousness. Okay? So human-born companions for every newborn, a human as well as a jinn, are assigned to that body. It is called green, which is dark in nature and has a bad, a bad personality. Okay, so did you know even the prophets had a green as well? So, likewise, we've made for every prophet an enemy, shaitans from among mankind and jinn. That is actually written in Surah Al-An'am, the cattle, chapter 6, verse 112. But what happened to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's green? Don't forget, he was the perfect person, which is why we follow his sunnah. He's the perfect person. He did no wrong. Other prophets, they might have done a sin. Jonah, he ran away when Allah said, do this for me. He ran and got swallowed up by the whale. Musa alayhi salam killed somebody. Ibrahim alayhi salam told a lie. But did you know Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do any sin, and that's the sole reason why we follow his sunnah. What happened to his green?
The angel came.
His good deeds
Sorry,
made the
hands
screen
up, because there's so you can't see this side, and there's lots of brothers' hands. So please put your hands up. Yes.
The queen ended up doing good deeds.
Yes. What did he become?
He didn't make them
Believer.
I think Ayaz said it. Did you say it?
He is like
Oh, sorry. Someone said he becomes Muslim. Okay? The Prophet said, every one of you has been assigned a companion from the jinn. The companions asked, even you are messenger of God? And the Prophet replied, even me, except that Allah has helped me against him and he has become a Muslim. Now he only tells me to do good. Okay? You're all scared. I can see you're all
Did
scared.
his Kareem become Muslim because his heart was clean twice? Or was it just became
No,
Muslim?
no, that was separate. That was the black spot that came out of his heart. Let's do comments and questions at the end. I know you're all excited, but that is a good... I think if you bring it up at the time, it's fine. So that's good. That was... Every heart has a black spot in it, and the black spot was washed twice. So it was... One of them, the black spot was taken out. The second time, it was like an internal wudu before he went up to the Mirage, to Jannah. And you were right, I think you said this, but I can't remember. There's a lot of people in the audience today, but I think you said about this, the adhan. Abu Raf said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ give the adhan and iqama in the ears of Hussein ibn Ali, that was his grandson. That's in Tirmidhi.
Something in their mouth.
Yes, but that's not to do with jinn, we're only covering jinns. The adhan is said in the right ear and iqama in the left ear. Okay? Now, the next kind of magic that happens. Okay? So, fortune tellers operate through the green. You know, sometimes you go to some woman and they tell you everything you've done in your past. Who's done this? Come and own up. You go to them and they tell you, when you was 5 years old, you got hit by a bus. And then your mum took you to so-and-so hospital in this ward. And nobody else knows that. And you get really scared. Did you know what's happening? The jinn is tapping into your Qur'an, and the Qur'an is telling him everything. And then who's then telling the fortune teller. So all your secrets, this Qur'an knows because he's with you all this time. Who's seen the film Ghost? Seen the film Ghost? Do you remember? You know when Patrick Swayze comes back and he tries to tell Demi that, look, it is me. And then, you know, he comes out with, we went on holiday here and you're wearing this colour underwear and all this business, he said. And she said, nobody else could have known that except
But he
him.
possesses the body of the third person, which was Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, that's different. But I'm just talking to you about this particular concept where the jinn knows everything about your life, your history, your of the past. Okay? And then all of a sudden, you know, the fortune teller tells you this and you're not going to believe in Allah anymore, are you? You're going to know, well, you know, Allah knows everything in your past and what's in the future. When I did the Mani Mufassal earlier, and all of a sudden somebody else knows it as well. So your iman weakens in Allah. Okay? So this is how contact is made with the green, and then your past is told in the crystal ball. Your past, okay? Now, evil eye, how do you think that happens? Let's be clever and think about this. How does your evil eye happen? It's to do with green.
Someone puts a spell on you or something?
No.
The green is jealous.
Think about it. Think of the green that is in you. And you're looking at me in an evil way. What do you think is going to happen?
Jealousy and hasad.
Yes, and what happens?
And then they're really angry and upset and they make the others upset.
Right, you know your green is the bad side of you. Okay? When you look at somebody else in envy, that green, all the negative comes out of him and goes on top of that person, then they get ill. Remember I said at the beginning? Okay, so it tells you in the Quran, and from the evil of the envier when he envies, that's in Surah Al-Falaq, chapter 113, verse 5. The Prophet said, most of those who die among my ummah, followers, die because of the will, because of Allah's will and decree of Allah, and then because of the evil eye. That's the next reason why they die. Okay? And there is also a dua to get rid of evil eye, which I think is very important to be done all the time, really, especially someone in my position where, you know, just so many people all the time looking at me. That's the dua. If you want it, I can send it to you. Okay? And how does this work? Basically, how it works is that the Quran inside you is only when you're envious or jealous, only with those kinds of feelings, sends negative energy to that person, and then that person's cells go all crooked, and then they get ill. Does that make sense? Okay? So Ibn al-Qayyum said, everyone who gives the evil eye is jealous, but not everyone who is jealous gives the evil eye. Then he said it begins when the person likes something, then his evil soul dwells on the matter, and by continually looking at the person who has the thing of which he feels jealous, he directs his venom towards him. A person may put the evil eye on himself, or he may put the evil eye on someone else without intending to, because it is a part of his nature. This is the worst type of human being. Did you know it can even happen with things? Even your own things. You could say, oh, you know, my lovely teapot, and then it breaks.
Yeah.
The next minute. Or plant. Somebody came to my house and said, oh, wow, what a lovely plant. It's so big and green. And then the next day it's shriveled up and it's brown and it's completely dead. Like somebody really has put some power over it, you know?
Some kind of, she calls it meaty nozzle, like a sweet root, but you still see
Yeah.
something really nice about
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you what you must do. Even if somebody else says, oh, I like your dress, you say mashallah or subhanallah. Yeah? That will then stop it. Okay? Even if they don't say it, you can say it in front of them. Don't think it, say it. You have to say it with your mouth if you want it to work. It's important, because the sound waves are not going to come out if you think it. Okay? This is, we're going to cover in a minute when I talk about remedies against black magic. It's not the same. Thinking it or playing it from a tape, you have to say it. Okay? Now, did you know that you can also put nazar on your own self when you look in the mirror? Because that green is in you and is evil. So there is even a dua of even looking in the mirror. Oh Allah, you have beautified my body, so do beautify my character. Okay? So I'm going to put a video on now to do with evil eye, and then we will look at remedies on how we can fix all these problems, and then we'll have questions at the end. Okay, there are other things as well, okay, apart from all of those that was mentioned in the video, apart from all the things to do with the Quran, there are other things as well. And basically, Abu Dawud narrated that Aisha radiallahu anha said the person who had put the evil eye on another would be ordered to do wudu, then the person who had been afflicted would wash himself with that water. And there is actually a very famous story about a sick camel. What happened was one of the Prophet's Sahaba's camel was really beautiful, and all of a sudden, when they were all together, it fainted, fell down on the floor. And Prophet Muhammad said that that camel has been afflicted by the evil eye, and so Sahaba, even though he didn't mean to do it, it happened with his eye. So what he did was, he ordered the Sahaba, the one whose evil eye afflicted that camel, to do wudu, and then with that wudu water, he said that the other Sahaba, whose camel it is, wash the camel with it, basically. Okay? So they washed the camel with that water, and hey presto, the camel stood up again and was fine. And this is actually very strong hadith, so we know that it happened. So there's one, and there is one more to do with the evil eye, which are going to shock the life out of all of you, unless you know it already. Do you know? Okay, let's shock you all then. Okay, did you know that camel urine, ever heard of that one? Yes, you have. So drinking camel urine helps to get rid of evil eye. How the hell does that happen then? Who's working out the science here? What did I say to you earlier on about Jinns' character? What did I say? I show you what it is.
Is it to do with cooling?
Negative.
Good.
You know,
Good. Good. I said they were
Yeah.
negative
electrons.
electrons, okay? And did you know that camel urine, first of all, they don't drink any water, do they, camels? So their urine must be really, really concentrated. So did you know that their urine has a very high amount of positive ions in it? So because camels drink little water, their urine and milk has a high amount of positive ions from high salt content, potassium, which is positively charged, which helps to neutralize the negative ions and electrons, particles of the jinn or evil eye. Okay, that's in Bukhari. Does that make sense? And this is actually something that the Prophet himself said. And basically, if anyone wants to try it, it's 1 cup of camel urine and it's 1 mug of milk, camel milk. Okay, I know you're all laughing, but it's true. The camel milk is actually got the potassium in it as well. That's how it works. Did you know that the composition of camel urine is also, when you test its pH, it's more alkaline as well than normal urine? And remember, jinns are negative and also a lot more acidic. It has less uric acid in it and very rich in electrolytes, and an ideal amount of potassium is in there. Okay. Can we use any of these to get rid of evil eye? This is a major one here, which you see in all the Middle Eastern countries.
No.
But it's got blue light in it, positive blue light, positive blue energy. Can we use it? Why not?
It's believing there's nothing. Yeah,
It's shirk. Because basically you are using these things instead of using Allah's words. Okay? So any amulets, even if it's got Quranic verses in it, you have to speak the words. The sound waves aren't coming out. The positive stuff is not coming out when you're reading the Quran. Do you understand? Do you remember I spoke to you about when you read the Quran, it makes your cells whole again? Okay? That's not going to happen just by wearing it, is it? So that is all wrong. The reason is only if you say Quranic verses, which I'm going to do in a minute when we talk about the ruqya, in the right order, okay? Only when you speak it, not putting it on in a necklace. Mood rings, yes, there is things to say that the certain stones have more positive energy coming out, which is what the witch told us last time. She was talking about all these stones and they have different positive energies coming out and you can use them to heal yourself. But that's shirk. We use Allah. Only what the prophets told us to do and Allah's Quran to heal us. Okay? And this is always blue for a reason, because blue counteracts the redness of the shaitan. Remember at the beginning I said shaitan's red and red light? And this is blue light, which is positive.
See that very common in the Turkish community when I was in Turkey. I saw that quite common.
Yes, this is in Turkey, even in Iraq, believe it or not, even in Egypt I've seen it as well. I've seen it in all the Middle Eastern countries. And also, like I said, the mood necklaces and things. Prophet's companion, Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him, saw a man with a piece of string or thread on his hand as a protection or cure from fever. So he cut the string and he read the verse. Most of them believe in Allah and still practice shirk, polytheism. That is Tafsir ibn Abi Hatim. This is how a believer then falls into shirk. Also, I don't know if you've seen all these charm bracelets that are out nowadays. These are really rife. What's that new shop, Pandora? It's full of charm bracelets. That's all paganism, by the way. All those little gadgets, a little horseshoe and a little tooth and all these kinds of things. Whoever wears an amulet, may Allah not fulfill his need, and whoever wears a seashell, in the days of the Prophet, seashells were being used for good luck. May Allah not give him peace. That's narrated by Ahmed, 16951. So again, bracelets and all of that is out, because did you know that shirk is the greatest and most unforgivable sin? Whoever associates anything with Allah, he has devised indeed a great sin. Everything will be forgiven on the Day of Judgment. You've heard my End of the World lecture recently, but there's one thing that will never get forgiven, and that is shirk. This is the dua for protection against shirk. Any other form of worship to anyone other than Allah, even by using his name together with someone else, is an act of shirk. So that includes yoga and all of the other bits I was talking about. Okay, now we're going to get into the real hard stuff. If you don't read the Quran, you're not constantly saying Allah's name to get rid of all these jinns and things, okay? The jinn inside you, your Quran, is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, isn't it? And stronger, okay? The more you delve into bad things, the more you're going to get into bad things. This is where you get all the depression from, all the negative is going to keep building up in your body, then you're going to end up becoming depressed, aren't you? And this is actually the Quran, because the Quran can possess you as well, which is inside you, but also other jinns can possess you. They are mischievous in nature, and you don't have to have done anything bad to them for them to possess you. For example, earlier I talked about if you wee on a tree and that tree's a jinn, it can come after you. And I talked about you could even step on a baby jinn at home. They're living in your houses, as families in your own houses. You could step on a jinn and that can come and possess you. But it doesn't have to, because they're mischievous in nature anyway, they can possess you at any time. So basically, they tell you again and again, really, that we must try and keep reading the Quran, because the jinns hear the Quran and they run a mile. They don't want to know that Allah is one. They don't want to know that Allah is great. They don't want to know, they run away. And also the positive charges and things that come out of the Quran, the sound waves, they can't penetrate that, okay? Did you know that other things can also get possessed? You can get possession in animals as well. And trees and objects as well, okay? So all of these things. Did you know that the other thing that jinns can do is, for example, this happened recently. A Hindu lady was telling me she went to a temple and there was all milk coming out of the god. And lots of people then became Hindu. They thought that must be that must be God if it's sending out milk. But it's the jinn doing it to try and make you believe in Hinduism. So that god was actually, there was a jinn in it giving out the milk, if you know what I mean. So we have to be careful of these things as well. And there are two things in particular mentioned in the hadiths that are related to jinn possession, two medical conditions. Does anybody know what those two are?
Schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia is one of them, yes.
Bipolar.
And?
Bipolar.
Epilepsy, okay. So the symptoms, this is to do with epilepsy. The symptoms of electrolyte imbalance, salts which are positive charges, can include twitching, weakness, and seizures and heart rhythm disturbances. Epilepsy is related to jinn possession as positive charges decrease in the system. So when the negative goes in you, the positive charges decrease. That makes your system go strange in your brain, and then you become epileptic. I've actually seen this with my own eyes again in my job. There was this boy, he used to say, "I can see a black monster." And he said that just before this happened, he could smell something as well. He could smell bad. Remember, jinns are dirty. Talked about that earlier on as well. And he could smell something bad, and then he saw this black shadow, and all of a sudden he couldn't remember anything after that, because do you know why? He had an epileptic fit. And he'd say that all the time. So doctors can put it down to whatever they like. In Islam, the Prophet himself said that epilepsy is linked with jinn possession. And I have actually got a story here where it was an African lady who visited him, visited the Prophet, and said she is suffering from epilepsy. And he said, bear with it, be patient, you will enter paradise. But he also told her to do the ruqya, which I'm going to cover in a minute, and also to recite Allah's name often. Okay? So the way I explained at the beginning, the science side of things, this shows the scientific side of what happens, but you can equate it to jinns, because like I said, in Islam we do believe in them. The other one is schizophrenia. Now, schizophrenia is when you can hear voices. Your green inside you gets so big that you can start literally hearing him. And then you start to see things, and the things tell you to do bad things. I talked about Yorkshire the Ripper earlier on, that he used to work in a graveyard, and he could hear voices, and people were telling him to do bad things. That was the jinns. So when it gets really big, schizophrenia is also likened to jinn possession. It's actually mentioned in the Quran. Whispering is an act of shaitan, one that aims at causing grief to the believers, yet without Allah's leave, no harm can be caused to them. So in Allah should the believers put all their trust. That is in Surah Al-Mujadila, and that is She Who Disputes, chapter 58, verse 10. Now, a brain of a schizophrenic person, the activity changes and becomes like this. Did you know that when you pray, your brain goes back to that again? There has been evidence, they've done imaging on brains, and they've done without reciting the Quran. It's like this on a schizophrenic person, and when they recite the Quran, all the chemicals are all balanced and beautiful in there. Like I said, the sound waves make your cells whole again. The brain then becomes like that. Okay? Normal or no normal person. And the ruqya is something which Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us to do if you think that you are afflicted by black magic or even evil eye. Basically, the ruqya, anybody can do if you know the verses of the Quran, but somebody should say the verses. It shouldn't be played in my books from a tape recorder. Beware of spoof imams. There are spoof imams out there who are gaining money out of this, and you'll go to them and they'll tell every Tom, Dick and Harry, yes, you're afflicted by jinn, yes, you've got black magic on you, yes, you've been possessed, because they want to get the money. And also beware if you're a woman and a man's coming, because you might not be in a right state of mind, you could get molested, because I have heard cases like that before. In fact, there is a female lady who does ruqyas in Green Street, so if you want her number later, I can give it to you. She's a revert, and she does ruqyas on women for that reason, because that can happen amongst women. You can. When you do the ruqya, it has to be Allah's words and His names and His attributes. That's what shaitan doesn't like, and then will run away. Also, it has to be in Arabic, the ruqya, and it has to be words that you understand. Otherwise, somebody could be just saying anything. Also, you have to believe in it as well, that Allah will cure that person in the end as well. So Ruqya is basically verses of the Quran, and like I said, they're the strongest thing that you can use to fight black magic and get rid of the jinn, for 3 reasons. One, the Quran elevates Allah's name, and the jinn doesn't like it. He gets jealous and he runs away. He doesn't want to know. It's like, say you don't like a friend and another friend elevates her and says, oh, you know, she's lovely, isn't she? And you go, oh, don't tell me, I don't want to know. I don't like her. That's how the shaitan feels, and he runs away. And the other thing is the sound waves, they form a barrier around you, the positiveness, which gets rid of the jinn. And also, when you recite the Quran, your cells become whole as well, okay? Which heals you. And it is written in the Quran, people don't like me saying this, but it's true. Depression, anything negative is all from shaitan. It tells you in the Quran, whoever turns away from my remembrance, indeed he will have a depressed life. So you have to keep remembering Allah if you don't want to be depressed. The number 1 cause for heart disease is lack of vitamin D. So this is Surah 20 verse 1 to 4, Taha. And it does tell you also in the Quran, surely in Allah's remembrance do hearts find rest. And only by reciting the Quran do you find rest. Surah Ar-Ra'd, the Thunder, chapter 13 verse 28. So the more you think of Allah, the more healthy you become. And it tells you again in the Quran, by the remembrance of Allah do our hearts are assured. Again, that's in Surah Ra'd. And look at that little capsule. I really like that picture. You like that one for your pharmacy. It's a capsule pill, but instead of medicine in there, it's got Subhanallah, Astaghfirullah, you know, dhikr. The word of Allah is the medicine of the heart. Now, why do we get depressed when we're not remembering Allah? Who knows the answer to this one? Why do we get depressed when we're not remembering Allah? There's something that happened to us even before we were born, and it's in our minds.
Is it like when we were first created and we all said we worship you alone, our souls?
Yeah.
We all said,
Yeah.
you know, we
Yeah. There are 6 stages of our soul, and the very first part was the story I told you right at the beginning. You know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told, made Adam al-Islam, and we talked about Iblis and everybody bowing down to him. And then after that, did you know that we were all made and we bowed down to Allah and we took a covenant and we said we're only going to worship you and nobody else. We took a promise. And that promise was in Allah Mahfuz, which is the highest part of Jannah where Allah lives. Allah created all the souls of the descendants of Adam and Hawa who were predestined to come to this earth. Everything about the universe and our soul before and after creations are documented and recorded in the tablet book in heaven, Allah al-Mahfuz. So, you know when you take a promise and then you don't keep it, you feel guilty. Think of it now. Say you do a promise, take a promise, and then you don't keep your promise. You feel really guilty. So when we don't remember Allah or believe He's one, we feel guilty. We feel really, really guilty that why are we not worshipping Him? This is how then depression kicks in. So you know, like stomachs need food and cars need fuel, the souls actually need prayer. And you need to do all your 5 times prayer to have your soul fully nourished. Do you remember earlier on what I said about the Quran, that 3 hours of Quran makes you a perfect whole person? Well, did you know when you read your 5 times prayer properly, it does sort of equivalent to that, if you include all your sunnahs and nafils and everything. Muslims believe that man was created by God to worship Him, and that is our purpose in life. And like stomachs need all of this stuff, we need prayer, really, to remember Him. And did you know that when you do the sajda in prayer, it's the best way to remove the negative electromagnetic charges from the forehead. when you're on the ground. The different positions of prayer have recently been scientifically proven to help remove electromagnetic charges, and the latest research shows that the best way to remove negative charges is to put your forehead on the ground, facing the center of the earth. A non-Muslim got someone to come round. To position their bed headrest towards Mecca so that their head is facing that way. And did you know that it got rid of aches and pains? So there's so much scientific knowledge happening nowadays that tells you that all of this kind of stuff works. Also, did you know that when you talk to Allah at the end of your prayers, and you're doing that 5 times a day, you're actually getting rid of all your problems and your worries, and that makes you just have a more healthier mind, because only Allah can solve your problems. And when that happens, Salah is an amazing exchange. You hand over your worries to Allah, and Allah then hands over His blessings to you. Now, other ways, I have shown you lots of du'as as we've gone along. I showed you the evil eye one, I showed you the one in the toilet, didn't I? I showed you other ones as well, coming in and out of the house, but we're going to do some of them now. Did you know that when you change your clothes, it says in the Quran that indeed Shaitan and his tribe watch you from a position where you cannot see them. That's in chapter 7, verse 27. And basically, you need to protect yourself. So while you're changing your clothes, it tells you this thought, oh Allah, for you is all praise, you have clothed me with it, i.e. the garment, ask for the good of it and the good for which it was made, and I seek refuge with you from the evil and the evil for which it was made. Did you know that this actually happens a lot back home in our countries? People nick your shawars and things. I don't know if you've heard of this, but this, I've definitely seen this. They nick your shawar because it's got bits of your skin on it, yeah? And then they use that skin for genetics and then do all the black magic. So when you wear your clothes, make sure, for example, especially when you've got your shawar kameez out, there is the shawar with it, and the dupatta. Make sure it's all together, if you know what I mean. Because these things do happen even in this country. Believe me, it does happen. Okay, the other one is Shaitan loves to see your private parts, and this is why when you go into the toilets, you have to say that dua to get rid of them. And when you say this, then it gets rid of them, at least while you're changing your clothes. Also, did you know that in your houses there are jinns? We already mentioned they live in families and they live in your houses. So those who dwell in the house are called awamir. And this is the dua, in the name of Allah we enter, and in the name of Allah we leave, and upon our Lord we place our trust. So this is the species that's in your house. Remember I talked about different species earlier on? There's a different one in the toilet, this is one in your house. And this is very, very important. When you enter, and then when you leave, in the name of Allah, I place my trust in Allah, and there is no might nor power except with Allah. How do you think Shaitan feels when you're about to read Salah? When you're about to pray to Allah, aren't you?
He's running around you, trying to disturb you and trying to...
Yeah, he tries to distract you, he tries to make you forget, he comes and stands right next to you. This is why when you make your lines, you stand without any spaces so that you're all together. And the way you start your salah is with the ta'awuz, isn't it? A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. So when starting your salah, you must do that. Those who disturb you in your prayer are a different species. They are called the khanza. So see how these different shaitans, different species have their own different roles. So this is the ta'awuz that you must read before starting. I seek shelter in Allah from the rejected shaitan. Okay. And then we go on to bigger bits. Narrated from Abu Musa that the Prophet ﷺ said, the likeness of a house in which Allah is remembered and the house in which Allah is not remembered is that of the living and the dead. And that is in Sahih Muslim, volume 5, hadith number 1653. So anywhere where you say his name, Shaitan doesn't want to hear and he runs a mile. And there are so many things that we could read. So Surah Baqarah is one of them. Did you know that it says, don't spend most of your life in a graveyard called home? Do not make your homes graveyards, for verily shaitan flees from the house in which Surah Baqarah is read. That's Sahih Muslim. So Surah Baqarah is very, very important. The whole of Surah Baqarah is very, very important, but especially the last parts. So we're going to come to that now. The last part includes the Ayatul Kursi, which is verse 255. And the Ayatul Kursi is extremely powerful against evil. And reciting this Ayatul Kursi just makes the jinn run a mile away. Okay? Because this particular ayah really elevates Allah so high, and all the bits about which shaitan wants to take over him. Like the shaitan wants to be the Lord of the worlds. He was Lord of the world before Adam came along. That was again right at the beginning when I said jinns were here first. Then he wants to tell you your destiny. He wants to tell you what was before and what was after. So here it is. This is the Ayatul Kursi. And here is all those very interesting bits. So Allah, there is none worthy of worship except He, the ever living, the ever watchful. Shaitan, is he going to like that? No. He's going to say, no, he's not worthy of worship. Worship me. I want to be worshipped. He's been trying to do this all along with his magic. Neither drowsiness nor sleep overtakes him. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. At the beginning we said he was big-headed because he ruled the earth. He doesn't want that being said. Who is there that can intercede with him except by his permission? So even when you're trying to intercede, the shaitans are up there listening into the conversations. It tells you even with that, that only you can do that only with Allah's permission. He's not going to like that. He's going to run away. I don't want to know, he's going to say. He knows what is before them and what will be after them. There's all the magic gone then, isn't it? Yeah? Do you understand why this works now against magic? He is the one who tried to tell you what happened to Demi in the ghost film. Okay, that kind of stuff. He's the one who wants to tell you what will happen in the future with the horoscopes and the lady in the crystal ball. And they encompass not a thing of his knowledge except for what he wills. And that is such a powerful, powerful sentence. A lot of people from here will go away and they wouldn't have taken a word in that I've told them. And it wouldn't affect them at all. I've seen that happen many times. But that's because Allah didn't will it to happen. Some people will go away and they'll contact me straight away. I can hear my phone buzzing the moment I get home. Oh, you know, you said this, that was really good. Can I have that slide, please? Or can I have that dua? Or I've got another question for you. That means Allah willed it for you to remember what I said and for you to be interested in it. So even that is up to Allah. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. But Shaitan's got a throne in the sea. He wants that to cover the earth. He did cover the earth. He did rule the earth before. And the preservation ties him not. And he is the most high, the most supreme. Do you think he's going to want to know that? If you've got a friend and you don't like her, and I say, well, she's brilliant, she's the most high, the most supreme, you're not going to like that. You say, stop right there, I don't want to know. Okay? So that will just give you an idea. There is actually not just the words, there's actually linguistic miracles in Ayatul Kursi as well. So I don't know if any of you have noticed, the middle bit is white, and then these two go together, and the two greens go together, the two pinks are in parallel with one another. So it is a very interesting ayah because it has a very, very interesting pattern in there. I'm going to put that pattern on now for you to see what I mean.
The arrangement of the Quran is one of many reasons why Muslims believe that it could only have come from God. In fact, modern research has discovered a remarkable structure in the Quran known as ring composition. To demonstrate this, let's analyze the second chapter of the Quran known as Al-Baqarah, the cow. This chapter consists of a total of 286 verses. The entire chapter can be divided into 9 groups based on theme. The first group of verses talk about faith and unbelief. This mirrors the theme of the last group of verses. The second group covers God's creation and knowledge. This again mirrors the second to the last group's theme. The third group discusses the law given to the Israelites, which mirrors the giving of law to the Muslims in the seventh group. The fourth group relates to the test of Abraham, a mirror of the test of Muslims in the sixth group. The middle group, the fifth group, is the central theme of the entire chapter, the change in direction of the Muslim prayer. Moreover, this verse even contains the word middle. We have made you believers a middle nation, so that you may bear witness to the truth before others. Together these 9 groups form a giant ring composition. As you can see, ring composition is structured as a sort of circle, with the central meaning placed at the center. You can think of it in terms of a mirror, so ring composition is the equivalent of putting a mirror in the middle. What is mentioned in the first half will be reflected in the second half. Things can be taken a step further. If we examine these 9 groups, we find that they each contain sub-ring compositions. So what we have is rings within rings. Things can be taken further still. This sub-ring contains yet another ring within itself. This is the 255th verse known as Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. Just like the chapter which contains it, the verse of the throne can be divided into 9 groups based on theme. The first and 9th parts each mention God's personal names. The second and 8th parts both state that God never tires. The 3rd and 7th parts describe that God owns everything in the heavens and the earth. The 4th and 6th parts make it clear that God has total control over us and we are dependent on Him. Notice that the middle of this verse mentions before and after, which could be yet another allusion to the mirroring of ring composition. It's worth highlighting that not only does the verse of the throne contain its own ring composition, but it is also positioned as a sub-ring within 2 larger rings, a concentric ring composition. We can see that this chapter of the Quran is marvelously designed, being precisely and tightly arranged according to the principles of ring composition. This precision in arrangement is in fact astonishing when we consider the timing of the revelation of these verses. This is exactly what we find with the Quran's structure. The builder in our example is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The house that he began to build since its first verses were revealed to him is the Quran. The rooms and bricks in our construction example are its chapters and verses. He can never have a design plan in place for the Quran because the revelation of many of its verses depended on events that were out of his control, such as the social developments and challenges that he faced throughout his prophethood. For example, believers would come up to him and question him on a particular matter, or his enemies would challenge him. The responses in the form of revelation would then descend on him, addressing the specific situation that he was facing. How could Muhammad have devised such an intricate plan when he could not predict the events that would dictate the revelation of verses? Such an arrangement would have to be planned in advance, but this was not possible due to these events being out of his control. What this demonstrates is that the author was someone who could predict the future. Possessing knowledge of the unseen is a quality of God, not human beings.
Okay, Surah Baqarah, like I explained to you, it's in Surah Baqarah, the Ayatul Kursis, but also the last few verses are very, very important. Did you know that Allah inscribed a book 2,000 years ago before He created the heavens and the earth, from which the last 2 ayahs of Surah Baqarah were revealed? So even before the world was made, the last 2 ayahs of Surah Baqarah were already there. If they are recited for 3 nights, no shaitan will remain in the house. That's Tirmidhi 2882. And again, those 2 verses, I'll leave it up to you to look them up. But again, there is a lot of praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in there. And all of those things, they just make the shaitan run away. He doesn't really want to know. The other very important thing are the 3 quls, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, Al-Nas. With Ikhlas, the shaitan hates that surah because it's all about Allah is one and He has no partners, He has no sons. The shaitan does everything he can to make you do shirk. He wants you to get into paganism, he wants you to get into magic and all of these things. He wants you to worship him. That's associating a partner to Allah. So, Allah, the one and only, Allah, the eternal, the absolute, he begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. So that is a very, very important goal, which makes him run a mile away. Doesn't want to know. Okay? The other two were very, very important. What happened was, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, somebody did black magic on him. It was a Jewish person. And what they did was they got his beard hair and they tied knots in it. And that was very common in those days. The Arabs were into witchcraft and they were tying knots and things. The genetics of him was in that beard, and it got all knotted up, so all his feelings and everything got mixed up, his brain got mixed up. And what that magic did was it made him not remember when he slept with his wives. So he thought he slept with his wives, but he hadn't. So he had stopped sleeping with them, and that, do you see the shaitan was trying to break that relationship that we talked about earlier? The biggest thing that he wants is for couples to break up. So basically, he had a temperature as well, and then 2 surahs of the Quran came down, An-Nas and Al-Falaq, and they were revealed especially to get rid of that black magic. And as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying those things, he physically saw the hair being unknotted as he said each ayah. So we know that this is very, very authentic. And let's have a look at them now. So this is the first one, which is An-Nas. Qul a'udhu birabbin nas. I seek refuge with the Lord of mankind. He doesn't like that, shaitan. The king of mankind. Shaitan's not going to like that. The true God of mankind. From the mischief of the whispering. Remember I said to you, when shaitan gets big, he whispers in your ears. Elusive prompter who returns again and again, who whispers in the hearts of people, whether he be from the jinn or humans. So this is actually to do with evil eye as well, because it's talking about humans, isn't it, as well? And then the next one is Al-Falaq. I seek refuge with the Lord of the rising day from the evil of all that he created, from the evil of night's darkness. Here we go, darkness again, related to jinns, when it spreads around, from the evil of the woman who blow on knots, and from the evil of the envier when he envies. So this is again very good for black magic and for evil eye as well. And there are 2 more things, apart from all the Quran and the surahs and the prayers and the camel urine. There's 2 more things you can do that get rid of black magic. Who knows what those are? Any ideas? Yes?
Dates.
Good, good. Dates. Did you know that ajwa dates, I know you've just got back from Umrah. We need ajwa dates, please. Ajwa dates are very, very good, and the Prophet himself said, those who eat 7 ajwa dates every morning will not be affected by poison or magic that day till night. How does that work then? You can work that one out. Where are my scientists? Why do dates work?
It's high in potassium.
Good. Well done. Did you know that ajwa dates are rich in positive ions? Phosphorus. They generate fluorescent radiation. Phosphorus supports the blue spectrum. Remember what I said earlier on? Shaitans are red. Blue, which is the positive blue spectrum, and generates positive energy, and a blue aura around the body. The blue spectral cloud forms a protective barrier for invisible electromagnetic waves against jinns, envy, magic and evil eye. Jinns and magic are unable to penetrate this barrier generated by the energy that's emitted from the dates, although they're able to penetrate all other spectra. The positive electron elements also eliminates the negative charges of the jinns, exactly what I spoke to you about earlier. Today's modern medicine proves that eating 7 ajwa dates helps to form this effective barrier, and it kills worms and worm types in the stomach. Okay, and there's one more.
Zamzam water.
Good, well done. I have got an excellent audience today. Zamzam. The messenger said the best water on the surface of the earth is that of Zamzam. In it there is a food for the hungry and a cure for the ill. now is the time I'm going to put that video on that I promised you about, which not only talks about Zamzam, but when you read the Quran, what it does to your cells. This man actually has become a Muslim now.
Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto discovers the secrets of Zamzam water. Science has now revealed new secrets about Zamzam water and the way water is influenced by the verses of the Quran. It has now been scientifically proven that water is affected by what is recited over it. Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto first began experimenting on water. A Muslim later introduced Dr. Emoto to Zamzam water so he could experiment on it. Emoto took a sample of Zamzam water and said, "I couldn't crystallize it, even by diluting the Zamzam water with distilled water." He finally managed to crystallize the Zamzam water after diluting it by 1,000, one drop of Zamzam mixed with 1,000 drops of distilled water. And he got a uniquely shaped crystal. Two crystals were formed, one on top of the other. Mr. Emoto's colleagues said that the two crystals could be due to the fact that Zamzam water is composed of two words, Zam and Zam. Allah knows best. Masaru Emoto said, "My Muslim colleague offered to play Quranic verses over the water. He bought a tape recorder and played some Quranic verses. And we got the most perfectly shaped crystals, subhanallah." These are actual images of the crystals that were formed after the verses of the Quran were played. Dr. Emoto was also told that Muslims recite Bismillah, which means in the name of God, before drinking water. This has been practiced by Muslims since the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The word Bismillah was found to improve the quality and the structure of even regular water. Alhamdulillah. Dr. Emoto completed these experiments, which lasted 15 years. He published a 5-volume book called Messages from Water. He wrote, "I have proven that water is capable of thinking, fathoming, feeling, and expressing itself." The following was written by Dr. Masaru Emoto. "The quality and purity of Zamzam water will not be found anywhere else on this earth." He did a lot of research on Zamzam water and found that if 1 drop of Zamzam water is mixed in 1,000 drops of regular water will increase in quality similar to Zamzam water. The minerals in 1 drop of Zamzam water were far superior to any other water he had tested. He also found that the quality of Zamzam water could not be changed. Even after he recycled the Zamzam water, there was no change, it was still pure.
And cupping is the other one. Cupping is supposed to help because it's supposed to take out all the toxins when you do cupping and stuff. That's a practice of the Prophet, and it's a miraculous way of treatment. In fact, it's really, really coming back again, hijama, a lot nowadays. It's coming back into, not fashion, but people are reviving the Sunnah. And also, did you know fasting? When you fast, generally you're good. Why are we fasting when the moon's white and big and round? Because it keeps you away from bad. So fasting, especially in the winter, did you know, is recognized. The best season to a believer is the winter. Its nights are long for those who wish to pray, and its days are short for those who wish to fast. So that is also a very good one. Can we, somebody at the back, put the lights on, please? There's a light switch just above you, all of the lights, please. And basically, believe it or not, that was a very small snapshot. I could do this lecture for a whole day. In fact, did you know Jinns Black Magic lectures are usually in London for a whole day to cover all the different aspects. So this is a very good book, The Jinn and Human Sickness. This is Remedies in the Light of the Quran and Sunnah. It's a very, very good book. And this one, Healing with the Medicine of the Prophet, is if you want to do it through food, so it's got dates, that kind of stuff. So both of these books are very, very important. And what we're going to do now is to do questions. Can I have my helper, please, at the front? I have also got notes. Those of you who came late, they're all on the side for you to take on today's lecture, and lots of books on shirk and the oneness of Allah, how important Tawheed is in our religion. That's all there on the side. You can take all of those before you leave. Right, I think we had a question over there. So what you need to do is to always go around the wires. Okay, so if you come this way and take the question over there.
My question is, how can we tell the difference between black magic and whether it's not magic? So how can we differentiate between the two?
Yeah, there is lots and lots of ways, basically. And, okay, there's 4 ways, okay, when you can tell it's black magic and not anything else. And one of them is where all of a sudden you get an illness and it's completely unexplained. And the doctors don't even know how it happened, it's not genetic in the family, and there's no explanation for that illness. They don't know what it is, okay? That is an idea, okay? The other one is persistent nightmares, always showing the same scenes again and again. One of them that's mentioned in the hadiths is drowning. So you keep getting the same dream that you're drowning in water, which means someone's done something to your fluids. The other one is that no matter what you do, you are always, there's an obstacle in the way. Okay, so say you want to pass a test, on that day you have an accident, okay? Then you go in for the test again, and then you break your leg, yeah? And then you go for the exam the 3rd time, and something else happens, you get a flu. That's an example. So each time, whenever that event happens, an obstacle comes in the way, okay? And then the 4th one is, usually happens more with teenagers, the inability to concentrate. No matter how much they want to do their work, they just can't do it. They try, but they can't. That's the 4th indication in their beliefs. But that is happening anyway nowadays. You know why? Because of the negative electromagnetic radiation from phones and computers, which has the same effect, by the way, as jinns. Doesn't that make you think? All the negative effects of all the electronic equipment out there nowadays is having the same effect as jinns, so it could be that as well. Remember, the symptoms are going to be the same, aren't they? The symptoms are going to be the same. Okay? Right. Let's have a brother next. Let's have that brother over there, so you need to go round the wires.
Thank you.
Yeah, I found that the whole lecture and talk very enlightening and jinn busting, as you would put it. I wanted to ask a question about the food going to waste in a house and how jinns and evil spirits take hold of that.
Yes.
More to do with the food.
Yes.
In a home, when you're eating food,
Yes.
and some food is left over or left in the fridge and it goes off,
Yes.
and then it's chucked away.
Yes,
You know,
that's
that kind
not
of thing we
good.
shouldn't do.
At the beginning, we talked about where jinns are prominent and they're in rubbish dumps. This is the reason, because they're eating all the rubbish from in the bins. So it's very important to eat that food. And I don't know if you were here when we talked about when you eat, and even bones, you should wrap them up, did you know, and put them in the bin? That's another one, because shaitans eat bones. So the bones you should wrap up and throw in the bin. Any leftover food, only make how much you should and finish it. If it's leftover, it's okay in the fridge. The reason is they don't get through closed doors. Remember I said that earlier? I don't know if you were here then when we talked about they can't get through closed doors. So put it in the fridge, eat it the next day. But what you mustn't do is throw away any bad food, because they get in the bins and they eat all the leftover food.
One last question. In a graveyard,
Yes.
got people with your dead bodies. Are they feeding on the dead bodies?
No, there's no hadiths on that one, but they are in graveyards. There's lots of jinns in graveyards. They're dark, desolate places, aren't they? Yes. Okay, any more questions?
Yes.
Okay, if you can take the camera all the way around. Sorry, not camera, mic. Doesn't matter, does it? I have talked a lot today. Honestly, you girls, you get over here and talk like I do now.
No, thank you.
Exactly.
I have my own question, but just responding to what you said to what the brother was asking you. If you have food that you have to throw away, do you wrap it?
Yes. Yes,
Wrap it and put
you
it
should.
in.
Yes, and that is an Asian culture we do anyway, don't we?
Yeah.
Bones especially, because they eat bones as well.
Okay, my question is, so Dracula's are a myth, or are they jinns?
They could be jinns. Like I said to you earlier, aliens, they're jinns. There's no such thing as aliens, there's no such thing as ghosts or Dracula, but yes, they can be jinns, because they can take on form, any form, and they are usually bad.
Yeah, the Dracula story is coming from the Romanian king who was fighting with the Muslims.
Yes, shaitans can take on any form, so any bad can be a jinn in real life as well, yes. Okay, I think we've got a brother here, so we'll come round here this way. That's why I got a young girl to do it, because you're energetic, aren't you?
Yeah, it's mentioned about yoga, you're not supposed to do it, yoga.
Yes, I'm absolutely certain about that, because I've looked it up, and it's any kind of, this is so important, when it's linked with another religion, that's where the problem is. Okay?
About some exercise, you know, you do, there's involved some exercise you do in yoga, is it not allowed?
It's still linked, you see, with paganism. It's linked with Hinduism. It's a Hindu practice. Look at the history of yoga. It's linked with a Hindu practice. Okay? So if I told you this is a Hindu thing, then you wouldn't. And in most yoga things, because I've been and seen it and run a mile as well, they make you, don't they make you focus on the sun? And then sometimes the mantras that you have to say are worshipping another god.
No.
If it's just
an exercise, you know, just physical exercise and like, you know, deep breathe in and out and things like this.
Yes. But I'll tell you the best form of exercise. Why not take on the latest Islam? And what about the prayers? You saw all the 5 different positions of prayers. Does exactly that. If I have got actually a talk on prayer, which I will do inshallah next year if I'm still alive, because I'm always thinking of my death every day nowadays. And that will show you all the beautiful effects. It's all the religions all rolled into one. You touch the 7 points of your body, it releases all the electromagnetic negative bits, it makes you at peace, the blood flows to your brain, everything all rolled in one.
This is what I was going to request you to make a special video regarding this prayer, you know, which part does what.
Yes,
and,
that's coming up next
like
year.
Our physical things, metabolic system, how it does and everything.
Yes.
This sort of thing, you know, it would be very, you know, helpful.
I've already got that. I've already got the talk. I've done it before, and I will inshallah do it after December next year.
So my exercise is stopped from today then?
It depends, you see. Is it actually yoga you go to?
No, I don't go.
Exercise is fine.
Sitting at home after for the prayer. And
that's fine. That's not yoga, is it? I'm talking about actually going to a yoga class.
No,
exercise, absolutely fine.
Like
the Prophet used to exercise. He used to run and everything. Exercise is absolutely fine. But if it's the exercise taken from Tai Chi or Reiki and all these other things, look at the history of them. I've looked up the history of yoga and it's linked with the Hindu religion. You might as well sit in your house and do Om and do all that and take the God out and everything. It's the same thing. Okay? But exercise is absolutely fine. Okay? Right, there was a brother at the back who had a question, who was first, so I'll try and let him go.
Just wanted to touch upon what the brother mentioned and what you've been saying about these yoga practices, a couple of experiences I had. I went to, at Earl's Court once a year they have this mind, body and well-being show.
Yes.
And I went along, I think it was last year, and I went round virtually all the stalls. And I used a testing question on them. I said to them, how many guiding spirits are you using? And I can't remember anybody not saying that they weren't using some sort of spirits. And there was a lot of that yoga business. There was even one person called Star Magic. There's another guy that people might get emails for, Unleash Your Super Genius. You know, he's into this magic business. And another example is I have a neighbor. She does yoga and she was looking for a hall. And she said that I don't want a church hall or something. Do you know anywhere? And I said, the reason is that because people usually have demonic attachment.
Yes.
And then suddenly she became very interested in what I meant in that. And then afterwards she revealed to me that a lot of her friends know a lot about magic and are witches.
Yes.
So these are personal experiences I've had myself.
There you go then.
Yeah.
Honestly, you look up all of these things. There's so many meditation practices, everything. It's always linked with another religion. You go back in time and it's all fiddling about with energy levels and all this business which we are not allowed to do. With us, it's prayer, reading the Quran, like I explained to you, saying Allah's name. That's the only thing that works anyway. And if you fiddle about with all these things, you end up with the jinns going in you 3 times more, it's said in the hadith.
And another thing just comes to mind is when you look at the meetup groups, so many of them are linked to yoga, clearing your sort of negative energies.
Yes.
It's virtually, you know, more than 90% you find.
Yes, but like I said, that's exactly what the Quran does. It clears your negative energy, the prayers, everything. It's all there for us on a plate. The routine, every little bit. Does your exercise, your deep breathing, everything.
I think our shortcoming is that we're not very sort of proactive in promoting our sort of all the benefits that we have. I think we're a bit shy. We're guilty of that, really.
Yes.
You know, we have so much to give.
I think from my understanding, people are not looking into the history of things enough, like I have. I know paganism more than pagans now. You know, and I think that's made me really more stronger in my religion. It doesn't mean I'm going to become a pagan, but you look into it and then you realise that, hang on a minute, Islam came to get rid of paganism. Why are we going back in time and following all these silly practices that were there in the beginning of time when Islam is there at the end? It's the latest religion we have to follow. And don't forget all the shirk that you're going through by doing all of this. There's so much shirk involved in paganism, is the worship of many gods. And do you really want to go to hellfire? Because that's one of the things that will never be forgiven, is shirk.
And the other interesting thing is Harry Potter is
Harry
based
Potter
on
is
magic
haram.
and etc. etc.
Yeah, Harry Potter is actually haram. In fact, some of the church schools have recognised that Harry Potter is
paganistic and
all of that. And there was actually Harry Potter dressing up there in my children's school, which was a church school. And there was one Christian lady who was very, very strong in her religion, went in and wrote a big letter of complaint. She wasn't happy at all, you know. And it's actually is being banned in some church schools nowadays. Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Right, if you could come round here, there's another sister over there. We have got a big audience. This way round, because she's at the front. Sorry. That's it.
Can I have it? No? Right. I just wanted to ask, is do we believe in chakras? Do we have chakras?
Yes, I know that, yes. Yeah, let me answer that then. Do you want to give
7 chakras?
Yeah, I know. Let me answer the question, because I know her. She's going to go on forever. Sorry. Okay. Yes, I know about the 7 chakras. That's to do with Hinduism, which is to do with the 7 points, which you know, release all the energies in business. Did you know that our prayers have actually already got that incorporated in them? So when we do our prayers, 7 parts of us are touching the floor. Our feet, our knees, our hands, our nose, our forehead, all of that. So, like I said, with prayers, with our Islamic prayers, they're incorporating all the previous religions, everything to do with the previous religions, all in one with the final religion, which is the final and is the best.
Okay. Sorry. One of the religion, when we go to sujood.
Yeah, do you want to give the microphone back? I won't be wicked and you might cast an evil eye on me as well. I need to be careful.
No, not after coming back from Mecca. No, I won't. I don't think so. I'm full of positivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something someone said to me, that when we go to sujood, we, you know, like the gentleman over there was talking about the health and fitness, all these trends that are coming out, you know, healthy living and spiritualism and everything. When we go to sujood, does it activate the pineal gland?
Yes, yes.
It does.
It does.
It does.
Yes. That is actually the lecture which the other brother wanted. He's gone there.
Yeah.
But when I do that lecture, it tells you about all the benefits, and yes, it does activate that as well.
So
it's a very good position. The best position is sujood, actually, which releases everything. It does activate the gland. Yes, and at the lowest point you can be, right.
So we are supposed to be, okay, it's like, sorry, what they call it, you know, Turkish.
Dervish.
The Muslims, the yellow top Muslims, it's gone out of my head now. The Sufi Muslims.
Yes.
Basically, they used to get themselves in a trance kind of thing.
Yes, yes.
So is this the kind of state that we're supposed to be in when we're praying, or when we are meditating, we're in sujood?
What the Sufis believe is they go into such a trance that they believe they're very near to Allah, then they feel they don't even need to pray anymore. So that is wrong. We can be very close to Allah, but we still have to carry on with our prayers. That's the difference.
Well, in future I will say I do exercise, it's not yoga anymore.
Yes.
I do stretches in the morning.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
But not the yoga positions that I was told.
That's fine. Exercise is fine. We do it. Don't we not go to aerobics, girls?
But they're not. And secondly, I have a necklace that shows the 7 chakras. Shall I stop wearing that?
Yes. Because that's linked with Hinduism? Yes, definitely. Okay, there's a sister right at the back, a new one. Go through this side, and she's right in the corner. Is it Simon? Simon. Yeah.
Just wanted to share something. Do you know what you said about the evil one? I remember someone saying to me, not just mashallah, subhanallah, they were saying something specific, like you needed to share Allahumma barik lahu and Allahumma barik laha.
Yes, that's the dua, isn't it? Yeah, the dua that I put up. I put that dua. I did, yes. If you want any of the duas, I can send them to you. Yes, I will do, inshallah. Okay?
I just wanted to ask, you said about the ruqya, to say about the ruqya, you said that is there a certain dua to read the ruqya? You said that is it the last 2 verses of Surah Baqarah? You said,
yes, last 2 verses of Surah Baqarah, Ayatul Kursi, 3 quls. Okay, but there are others as well. So if you get an imam in, they will do other verses as well. And not to play it through tape recorder, because that's the latest thing going out. It's all on YouTube. You can do ruqya on yourself, but you should then say the words yourself. You can do ruqya on yourself. You have to say the words yourself. Because remember what I said about the sound waves? The big positive sound waves is what will get rid of the jinn, and then you have to physically say it for that to be more effective.
Should it be in order? Any certain order we should say?
It does not need to be in order, but generally, even with Salah, people say you should do it in order of the verses that are in the Quran. So that, yes, I think you should do it in that order.
I've got a book, I'll bring it in next time. It's 1,000 du'as of the Sunnah. It's a little book.
Yes.
And I'll bring it in and you can show people.
Yes, and also the book I showed you is the best, the Jinn and Human Sickness. Yeah, like that, there's hundreds of dua books. There's the Fortress of the Muslim as well.
The Fortress of the Muslim,
yeah.
that's the one.
But we could go on forever about this. Is there any more questions just to do with this topic? Because then I want to tell you about 3 more events that are coming up. Right, we've got here your mum.
You know the Quran horse? Is that a test from Allah?
Say that again?
The Quran horse.
The Quran is a test from Allah, yes. Yes, it is. It's continuous test throughout your whole life. You're scared, aren't you?
Can't run away from yourself, can you?
Yeah.
Put up with it.
Okay, right. Any more questions? I know this is a good topic. Right, this way round. Come this way.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. Just a quick question. In the jinns we have heard they can't go through doors. So to perform magic, they may need to go to other buildings, can they go through brick walls or glass or?
Yes, I suppose they could, especially the ones to do with Soleiman al-Islam. Those jinns could, because they went across the world, didn't they, to get to the throne. So I'm talking about the ones that generally come in your houses at the time of Maghrib. Then they tell you to close your doors. Actually, they close your doors, cover up your jugs of water, because they can't go through certain things. Remember, there's so many species. Some species will obviously be able to. With the will of Allah, they can all do whatever they like. Okay, any more questions?
Just get to this, you know.
I'll just put that up again, actually. Yes.
You know, sometimes just excess food at home, you see, can't really help it. There's you know, you will go to a party or anything, there's so many food left over.
Yes.
So you can't really put it in the fridge, all of these.
No, you can put it in the fridge. Yes. That's why I said the jinn won't go through.
No, sometimes when it is kind of, if you want to eat it,
yes.
If you don't want to eat it, then what do you do? You just wrap it up and...
yes,
and
wrap it up, cover it, put it in the fridge, eat it the next day.
No, you want to, then you can put it away.
Yes,
like
you can
bones
put it,
and all this, you know,
yes.
half-eaten things like that.
Yes,
you
you put it away in the fridge. Like I said, the jinn doesn't get through the closed doors.
No, but
don't throw it in the bin. If you need to throw something in the bin, you wrap it up in a newspaper, especially bones. Even back home in our countries, they wrap bones up in a newspaper, put them in the bin, don't they? I think we did have that question, but you might be now. We had it that well, didn't we? Okay? Okay.
I've just got one last question about the gym. And this is important. My mom used to say if we come home after midnight, we should enter the door backwards, so that when the jinns are following us, they don't come in after us and tell the truth in there.
I haven't heard of that one. I've heard of, obviously, just before Maghrib you have to bring everybody in, close the doors, cover the jugs and all of that. I haven't heard of the backwards. No, I think that's old wives' tale.
When you're coming into the door, coming backwards.
Yes. That's an old wives' tale. Remember, I'll tell you how we know that's not true. Right at the beginning, when Shaitan got angry, what did he say? I'm going to come from behind you, and I'm going to come from the side of you, and I'm going to come in front of you. Remember, we covered that. That's in the Quran, isn't it? So it doesn't say I'm going to come from behind you. It says the three different things. Okay? Right, give me the thing. I think we must finish now. I know we can go on all day about this topic, but it's nice to know there's been a lot of interest, and I'm just going to quickly tell you about 3 very important events. Okay, just after that. The first one, next week Wednesday, is what does our faith believe about the afterlife? It's an interfaith forum here with dinner, free, and there will be 4 faiths talking: Islamic faith, the Baha'i faith, the Christian faith, and the Jewish faith. Possibly the Sikh faith as well. Very interesting actually to learn about other people's perspectives. And then on the next day, because it's Interfaith Week, the week after next, and in that same week there is a quiz and curry night which I'm hosting where I work at the university. There are very few tickets left now. We've had 70 people who have actually registered, so if you want to register, that's the link down there. And you'll have to do it quickly. Again, there will be questions from all different faiths, real proper competition, and very interesting. There will also be displays up of different schools, children's work from schools to do with the different faiths. And then this is the most important one to me. This is actually the next lecture, which is Sunday, 18th November. And this is actually a national thing that I'm involved with. I've been asked to get involved with, because actually there is a really big crisis going on which nobody knows about. It's to do with halal meat, okay? Now, did you know that in our religion, halal is not just about halaling the meat, slaughtering it, It's also about rendering of the animal rearing and welfare. Tayyib is mentioned for the first time. This is our final religion, Islam, and Tayyib is included in there as well. Yeah, in previous religions it was just the slaughter. And there's a big problem because the modern farming methods are not really compatible with the Quran and Sunnah. They're injecting hormones in there, they're fattening up chickens, they're all sorts. Honestly, when you hear this, you are going to become a vegetarian. I can guarantee it. And cancer's on the rise, okay? There's stunning going on, and stunning is not allowed in Islam when you look at the chemistry of things. Again, I've done a biotechnology degree, so I'm going to go into that as well, about all the stuff that happens when you stun meat. It has blood in it. In Islam, you're not allowed to have blood in meat. This is why there are so many problems out there. Mental illness, plus all the healthy problems, and all the children nowadays are all suffering from so many disorders because they've stopped eating. So we need to discuss this, and I have got in touch with Hawa, which is Halal Animal Welfare Association, and Zeus is a Halal and Tayyib farm in Chelmsford. They're the ones who got me on board, they got me involved with this. We've done a couple of campaigns in East London, and you are very lucky here because the first lecture to do with this is going to be done here, and then after that it's going to go global, nationally within England. And did you know that the halal symbol that is on your meat, it is not, it doesn't include tayyib. It just includes the slaughtering of the animal. It doesn't even tell you whether it's stunned or non-stunned. And there's all these things going on with the hormones and all sorts going on. That is not, that halal doesn't really mean halal. So we need to try and change the label of halal, at least have a criteria for halal with the government. The government said, do this, raise awareness, get petitions. It's all going to go state by state. But the first lecture will be here, and I would really, really appreciate it if you can tell as many people as possible. Bring all your friends, we need huge crowds. When I send this poster out, there will be a survey I will send out with it. Please, please, can you make sure you do that survey? That survey is going to be very important because it will give you an idea on what is actually happening to your food that you're eating. Genetically modified and all sorts. Meat is actually being coloured red as well, did you know, to make it look better? And the halal butchers haven't got a clue because they just go and get it from the farms. They're not there to even see what is going on. In fact, the Jewish has got better laws than we have. So do come along to that, put that in your diary if it isn't already, but nearer the time, I will remind you again, okay? Okay, I think we'll carry on. We were on